Michael Jackson may have been the king of pop on stage, but behind closed doors, he was a man surrounded by secrets and shadows. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on his inner circle, and what we find isn't the fairy tale you might expect. It's a world where loyalty and betrayal dance side by side, where closest friends could become accusers, and trusted guardians could turn into enablers. Imagine being the most famous person alive, yet not knowing whom you can trust. In this video, we'll uncover 8 uncomfortable truths about Michael Jackson's inner circle that will change how you see the man forever. 1. The cruelty behind the fame. Michael Jackson's story starts with someone who should have protected him, his dad, Joe Jackson. Most people saw Joe as the guy who created the Jackson 5. But for young Michael, Joe was terrifying. He didn't just push his kids hard, he beat them. If they messed up a dance move, Joe would hit them with a belt or even an electric cord. He'd make them practice for hours. And if they got tired or made a mistake, there were more beatings. Imagine little Michael dancing his heart out, not for fun, but because he was scared of what would happen if he didn't. Their house wasn't a home. It felt more like a prison.
Well, you don't get to do things that other children get to do. The simple things that they...
One of Michael's brothers even called it a nightmare. And it wasn't just the physical abuse. Joe also tore Michael down with words. He made fun of his looks, especially his nose, calling him Big Nose over and over. Those insults stuck with Michael for the rest of his life. Now, the tough part is, Joe's strict ways did lead to success. Without that pressure, Michael might not have become a superstar, but it came at a massive cost. Michael later said that even as an adult, just thinking about his father made him feel sick. Joe was in Michael's life until the end, but their relationship was built on fear, not love. And that's the uncomfortable truth. The same man who gave Michael his big break also gave him some of his deepest wounds. Sadly, this was just the beginning. If his own father could hurt him like that, what hope was there for the others around him? 2. Brother versus brother. It's normal for siblings to compete, but in the Jackson family, things got ugly. Michael's older brother, Jermaine Jackson, started out as part of the same group, the Jackson 5. They shared the spotlight, the stage, and success. But once Michael's solo career took off, everything changed. Jermaine felt like Michael left him behind. He said Michael wouldn't even return his calls anymore. Feeling ignored and maybe jealous, Jermaine snapped. In 1991, he dropped a diss track called Word to the Bad. And he didn't hold back. The song threw serious shade at Michael. Jermaine accused him of turning his back on his roots, changing his appearance, and letting fame get to his head. One line said, "Once you were made, you changed your shade." A clear shot at Michael's skin condition and surgeries, which most people didn't understand at the time. Another part called Michael a lonely superstar surrounded by fake people. This wasn't just some private argument, it was public humiliation, and it came from Michael's own brother. The media went crazy. Fans were shocked. Jermaine said the song wasn't meant to be mean. He just wanted Michael to snap out of it and come back to reality. But to most people, it looked like plain jealousy. Michael and Jermaine did meet up after the song leaked. Michael's first words were, "Why, Jermaine, why?" Jermaine claimed he wasn't jealous. Maybe that's true, but the damage was already done. The world had seen 2 brothers go at each other in public, and it left a scar. For Michael, it had to hurt deeply. His own family member, someone who knew what he'd been through, took his pain and made it public. It's a tough truth, but even when he was on top of the world, Michael couldn't escape betrayal from the people closest to him. And sadly, this wasn't the worst of it. An even more painful betrayal from another sibling was still to come. 3. A sister's public betrayal. If Jermaine's diss track was bad, LaToya Jackson's move was much worse. In 1993, when Michael was first hit with serious child abuse accusations, the world was watching him closely. He was under investigation. The media was all over him, and it was one of the hardest times in his life. Then, out of nowhere, LaToya did something that shocked everyone. She publicly sided with the people accusing him. She held a press conference on live TV, cameras flashing, and said she couldn't stay quiet about what she called Michael's crimes against small, innocent children.
But I cannot, and I will not, be a silent collaborator of his crimes against small, innocent children.
Just imagine that. Your own sister going on national television and basically calling you a predator. She even said she had seen checks Michael supposedly gave to families of the kids, hinting that he was paying them to stay silent. She added, "I love my brother, but it's wrong," and said she didn't want to see more kids get hurt. There was no doubt in her tone. LaToya made it clear that she believed Michael was guilty. And this wasn't some stranger or ex-employee. It was his own blood saying all this when Michael was already at rock bottom. The public was shocked. Most people expected his family to stand by him, But here was LaToya doing the opposite. Later, the Jackson family said LaToya was being controlled by her abusive husband at the time, and that she didn't speak for the rest of the family. Michael was said to be heartbroken and deeply betrayed. Years later, LaToya took it all back. She said her husband forced her to lie, and she apologized to Michael. He forgave her privately, but it was never the same between them. This moment still stands as one of the most brutal betrayals in celebrity history. The truth is, even Michael's own sister helped damage his name when he needed support the most. 4. A trusted friend who switched sides. Michael didn't just let family into his inner circle. He also surrounded himself with close friends and business partners who he thought had his back. One of them was Mark Schaffel, a guy Michael worked with in the early 2000s. At first, Schaffel helped Michael make charity projects and even directed a documentary that was supposed to show Michael's true side. Michael trusted him so much that he made him one of the few people allowed near him during tough times, even around his kids. But that friendship didn't last. By 2004, things took a dark turn. Michael fired Schaffel after finding out he had a shady past in the adult film business, something Michael said he hadn't known about when they met. Then, not long after, Schaffel sued Michael, saying Michael owed him money for unpaid loans, bonuses, and expenses. Michael denied it and said Schaffel was just another person trying to cash in. The two went to court, and it got messy. Schaffel claimed he had been Michael's only real friend and helped him during his lowest moments. But Michael's side said Schaffel was no friend. He was a guy trying to take advantage of Michael's fame. In the end, the jury ordered Michael to pay Schaffel over $900,000, but also found that Schaffel owed Michael money too. It was a lose-lose situation and exposed how ugly things had become. 5. Shady managers and manipulators. Throughout his life, Michael worked with a lot of managers and business partners, but not all of them cared about him. Some of the people he trusted the most were the ones who ended up controlling or using him. One of the worst examples was a man named Dr. Tommy. Tommy showed up during the last year of Michael's life. He promised to fix Michael's money problems and help him get back on stage. But behind the scenes, Tommy started cutting people off from Michael, including his lawyers and longtime staff. Michael became afraid of him. In a taped phone call with his spiritual advisor, Michael said things like, "I don't know what's happening with my money. I can't reach my lawyer. This guy's keeping me away from everyone." He also said, "I don't like it," and that he wanted someone he trusted to step in. That says a lot. This was one of the most famous men on earth, and he didn't even know what was going on with his own finances. Tommy wasn't just helping with concerts, he was making deals on Michael's behalf, including trying to sell off some of his personal stuff. People close to Michael said Tom was just another person who saw dollar signs. Michael eventually fired him and put it in writing that Tommy no longer had the right to speak for him. But when Michael died, Tommy still showed up acting like he was in charge until he was told to leave. That's how tight his grip was. Sadly, Tom wasn't the only one. Over the years, a lot of managers, advisors, and so-called friends used Michael's trust to help themselves. Some stole from him. Others pushed him into bad business deals. Even big companies took advantage. In 2002, Michael accused the head of Sony Music of sabotaging him and called him devilish. It might have sounded extreme, but based on everything Michael had gone through, it's not hard to understand why he was paranoid. He also had problems with people he once considered close. A banker named Dieter Weisner and his old friend Mark Schaffel were both fired, and then they turned around and sued Michael for money. Michael fought back and accused them of fraud. It became a mess of lawsuits that drained time, energy, and trust. The truth is, Michael's success made him a target. He was a creative genius, but not a businessman. He thought with his heart, not with contracts. That made it easy for the wrong people to take advantage of him. In the end, things got so bad that he had to bring back his former manager Frank DeLeo, someone he trusted from the 80s, just to feel safe again. 6. The people who were supposed to protect him failed. By the late 2000s, Michael had a team around him that was supposed to take care of his health and help him prepare for his big comeback tour. But this is where things really went wrong. One of the main people responsible was Dr. Conrad Murray, Michael's personal doctor. He was getting paid $150,000 a month to keep Michael healthy, but instead, he ended up playing a big role in his death. Michael couldn't sleep, and every night Dr. Murray gave him a drug called propofol, which is meant to be used in surgeries, not for helping someone sleep at home. It was dangerous and completely wrong. On June 25, 2009, it finally caught up to him. Michael took too much of it and died in his bedroom.
Multiple media outlets are now reporting that pop singer Michael Jackson has died.
The coroner said it was a homicide, and Dr. Murray was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Michael trusted Murray with his life, but that trust was badly misplaced. And Murray wasn't the only one at fault. A Jackson family lawyer, Brian Oxman, said that when paramedics arrived, Michael looked like a hospice patient. Frail, lifeless, and clearly in bad shape, Oxman was furious. He said everyone around Michael should have seen he was in serious danger, but they did nothing. They just watched him get worse. In his last weeks, Michael had been isolated from his family. People around him treated him like a product, not a person. And when he collapsed, Dr. Murray didn't call 911 right away. Instead, he told one of the bodyguards to hide the medicine bottles before help arrived. While all this was happening, Michael's daughter Paris walked in and saw her dad lying there. She cried out, "Daddy, Daddy!" while Dr. Murray panicked. It was heartbreaking. This wasn't just a bad doctor. It was a full-blown failure of everyone who was supposed to look out for Michael. They didn't protect him, they enabled him. And it wasn't just Murray. There was also Dr. Arnold Klein, Michael's longtime dermatologist and friend. In the months before Michael died, Klein was giving him strong painkillers like Demerol during cosmetic procedures. Records later showed Klein gave Michael high doses over and over. An expert later said Michael probably became addicted to it. That addiction may have caused his terrible insomnia, which led him to ask Dr. Murray for the dangerous sleep drug in the first place. Klein wasn't charged with anything, but his actions clearly added to the problem. People around Michael should have told him to stop. Instead, they kept giving him what he asked for, even when it was hurting him. They were more focused on keeping him going than keeping him alive. 7. The loyal few people who truly stood by Michael. With all the talk of people using and betraying Michael, it's easy to think everyone around him was fake, but that's not true. A few people stayed by his side no matter what. They didn't want money, fame, or anything else. They just cared about him as a person. First, there's Katherine Jackson, Michael's mom. She stood by him through everything: lawsuits, scandals, health scares, you name it. She went to court with him, prayed for him, and never gave up on him. When Michael was at his lowest, she was the one he called. Even the family's lawyer said she was unbelievably strong and always stayed in Michael's corner. Michael once said his mom was the only person he fully trusted, and that loyalty never changed. Another person who never turned her back on him was Elizabeth Taylor, the famous actress. She and Michael were very close. In 1993, when Michael was in pain, struggling with addiction, and getting hit with public accusations, Elizabeth flew out to help him. She took him out of the spotlight and personally brought him to rehab overseas. She didn't care what people thought. She believed in Michael and did what real friends do. She stepped in when others stayed silent. In interviews, she said Michael would never hurt a child and that she believed in his innocence 100%. And she didn't just defend him in public. She stuck by him until the day she died. Then there's Macaulay Culkin, the child actor from Home Alone. He was one of Michael's closest young friends and stayed loyal when it really mattered. In 2005, when Michael was on trial for serious charges, Macaulay showed up in court and defended him. He said nothing bad ever happened and called the claims ridiculous. His testimony helped convince the jury that Michael wasn't guilty. And even years later, Macaulay still says Michael never did anything wrong and that they were just real friends. There were others too, like Omar Badi, who Michael treated like a son, and Brett Barnes, who also stood up for Michael in court. Neither of them ever said a bad word about Michael, even when they were offered money to tell stories. They stayed silent and respectful. Some of Michael's bodyguards did the same. They shared stories about trying to protect his privacy, not just his safety. These people showed that not everyone around Michael was fake. But here's the sad part. Michael didn't always see how loyal these people were. After being betrayed so many times, he started to doubt almost everyone, even the good ones. By the end of his life, he was pushing people away, even the ones who truly cared. He once said, "I trust everyone. It's the devil inside them I don't trust." It sounds strange, but it shows how deeply he struggled to feel safe. Thankfully, a few people in his life never gave up on him. Their support was one of the only good things he had left. And even after he passed, the battles between loyalty and betrayal in his circle didn't stop. That leads us to the last part of the story: what happened after Michael was gone. 8. More drama and family fights. You might think all the problems ended when Michael died in 2009, but they didn't. In fact, things got even messier. After his death, a huge fight broke out over who controlled Michael's money and legacy. Michael had a will. In it, he left his money to his mom, Catherine, his kids, and set up a trust for their future. He picked 2 people to run his estate: his lawyer, John Branca, and music exec, John McClain. But some of Michael's brothers and sisters weren't happy about that. In 2012, 4 of them, Randy, Jermaine, Janet, and Rebby, wrote an open letter saying the will was fake. They claimed Michael was in New York the day the will was supposedly signed in Los Angeles, and they accused the estate lawyers of lying and trying to hurt their mom's health. Basically, they were saying Michael would have never left them out of the will, and that these 2 men were tricking everyone. The estate fired back. They said the siblings' claims were completely false and called them old internet rumors. They said the Jacksons were just mad because they weren't included in the will. And they had a point. Michael didn't leave anything to his siblings, just to his kids and his mom. That must have hurt. Things got so heated that Michael's mom, Catherine, suddenly disappeared for a while. Turns out some of the family had taken her to Arizona to rest, but didn't tell Michael's kids. His daughter, Paris, who was only 14 at the time, went on Twitter and accused her uncles of basically kidnapping her grandma. Then a video leaked of Janet and Paris arguing in the driveway. It was a full-on family mess, all happening in public. In the end, the will stayed the same, and Branca and McLean stayed in charge. And to be fair, they actually helped turn Michael's estate around. He died with a lot of debt, but they made smart business moves, and now his estate is worth hundreds of millions, some of which still goes to the Jackson family through the trust. Funny enough, the very people who complained about being left out still benefit from what the estate has built. But even with all that money, the bad feelings didn't go away. Some siblings, like Marlon and Jackie, supported the estate and stood by Michael's kids. Others, like Randy, kept pushing back, saying things still weren't right. In the end, Michael Jackson wasn't just a superstar. He was a man trying to survive in a world full of fake smiles and hidden knives. He gave us music, magic, and moments we'll never forget, even while battling pain behind the scenes. The people closest to him didn't always protect him. In fact, some helped destroy him. But through all the lies and betrayal, he still believed in love, in loyalty, and in giving. Maybe that's what makes him unforgettable. Not just the music, but the heart behind it. A heart that stayed kind, even when the world wasn't.